I used to think the worst thing you could lose in a relationship was trust. Then I watched my own name vanish off a deed. I'm Marcus, 35, senior estimator for a commercial construction company in Atlanta. My brain is basically a spreadsheet with knees. I price concrete like some people price avocados, factoring in weather and whim and whether the county inspector woke up on the righteous side of the bed. My wife Layla is 32, a brand storyteller who can make an empty room look like a movement. She's the kind of person who stacks 3 candles on a side table and somehow sells the idea that your soul would be better if you bought the 4th. We met at a zoning board meeting, which is either a red flag or a rom-com if you squint hard enough. I was there to argue about a parking ratio. She was there, filming a clip for a developer who wanted to activate a block with a food hall. She laughed at my joke about activating the stormwater plan and asked if I always brought a ruler to public hearings. I said yes. She said, "I like men with rulers. You can build a life on that kind of line if you aren't careful." We did the things that make 2 people look like 1 unit on a bank application. We got a dog named Ludo, who believes squirrels are part of a conspiracy. We combined our Spotify, which should be recognized in law as a level of intimacy. We saved hard. We toured 19 houses and lost 4 bids and then bought a 1958 brick ranch in Kirkwood with hardwood floors that complained when you walked like old men on porches and a magnolia out front, so dramatic we joked about sending it a 1099 for curb appeal. We painted the smallest bedroom office white for me and Creator Light for her and started arguing about trim color like grown-ups. I'm the kind of man who reads closing documents. I read every page of ours. The title, Woman Silvery Hair, nails that said she did not so much as lift a binder, tapped her stack and said, "You're my favorite kind of buyer." She circled the deed. Joint tenancy with rights of survivorship, Marcus Adler and Layla Quinn, husband and wife. I took a photo of the page with both our names because I'm sentimental about paper. We framed the deed copy and hung it in my office like a diploma I actually use. That first year, I did all the boring homeowner tasks you romanticize when you're renting. I cleaned gutters. I learned the sound of our HVAC when it's flirting with failure. I labeled the breaker panel. I made a folder in the fire safe labeled House Docs, like a man whose love language is redundancy. We were corny and happy and vaguely online about it. Layla filmed before and after reels and said, "We a lot" in captions. People hearted our life. The first odd thing didn't look like betrayal, it looked like efficiency. Layla suggested we refinance 6 months in when rates took a dip. "Cash out to fix the kitchen," she said, sliding into my lap at the table like a bribe. People love a mid-century ranch that knows it's pretty. If we get new cabinets, I can get 3 sponsor posts and the mortgage drops $200. It pays for itself. We ran the numbers. It made sense. We refinanced, pulled 40 grand for cabinets and a hood she said made her feel like Ina Garten's chaotic cousin, and the payments slid down nicely. The closing felt like a rerun with better snacks. New deed recorded. Same names. We went home and celebrated with champagne that tasted like an expensive apology for grapes. The second odd thing arrived in an email I didn't remember signing up for. Fulton County Recorder's Office, property fraud alert. The subject line looked like spam. Inside, a polite message. A document has been recorded against parcel number S string of numbers. Click here to view. I clicked, because county websites are where my species of nerd lives. The page showed a document logged, Quitclaim deed. I frowned. Quitclaim deeds are like passing notes in class. You can hand over whatever interest you may or may not have without promising it was worth anything. We had just refinanced. People don't record quitclaim deeds for fun. I clicked the PDF. My throat went cold. The document transferred. All right. Title and interest from one Marcus Adler to 1 LQ Studio LLC. The grantee address was a P.O. Box in Decatur. The notary's signature was a scrawl under the name B. Kell. The date was last Tuesday, when I'd worked a 12-hour day fielding 3 bid clarifications and a subcontractor temper tantrum about epoxy curing times. I stared at the signature. It said mine. It was not mine. People talk about seeing red. I saw the exact opposite. The color a room goes right before a breaker pops. I printed the deed, circled the notary stamp, and stuck it on the fridge because the fridge is where we put things that need to be believed. Then I walked outside and looked at the magnolia until I convinced myself that the world was still the right shape. Layla came home with 2 tote bags and the story of a shoot where a florist had cried real tears when a brand manager used the word journey to describe a vase. She kissed me. I kissed her back because autopilot is a thing in marriages. I pointed at the paper. She glanced, blinked, and then did a micro smile that had rescued us from fights about paint and parents and whether a charcuterie board counts as dinner. "What's that?" she asked politely. "You tell me," I said, keeping my voice in the register where facts live. "Because according to the county, I transferred my interest in our house to LQ Studio LLC last Tuesday, and I'd like to meet the version of me who had time to leave work, impersonate my own signature, and do crimes." She reached for the paper, read the whole thing, and then laughed a little too bright. "Oh my God," she said. "I know what this is. Victor said we should do this for asset protection. It's just a paper thing. We park the house in an LLC, so if anyone sues me because they tripped over a tripod, they can't take our home. It's a thing entrepreneurs do. I forgot to tell you. That's on me." "Victor who?" I asked, and my mouth knew the name before she answered. "Our contractor on the kitchen 40-something. Shirt that fit like a politician's promise, a smile that made clients agree to change orders. He and Layla had an easy patter, the kind that reads like siblings or like practice. He'd hugged her at the final walkthrough. I didn't love that. I also didn't love a smart man choosing asset protection as the first lie. "Victor's friend," she corrected quickly. "She's a lawyer, Beth. Everyone does this in LA. We're just catching up." "What, Beth?" I pressed. She waved a hand. "She's at a firm. I can't remember the name right now." My work brain spun up and did what it does to bad plans. Ran cost. "Why does the quitclaim show me transferring to your LLC?" I asked. "Not ours." She rolled her eyes in the way you roll them at a husband who is being very man about property law. "Because it's my business," she said, like I was being silly. "LQ is me. But we're married. What's mine is ours. This is for paperwork. If you want a Marcus LLC, we can spin one up. Relax." I wanted to relax. I also wanted to know why the notary was a name I didn't know, why my signature looked like a left-handed attempt at forgery, and why my wife had recorded a deed without mentioning it over chicken on Tuesday. I slept like a man who was listening for a sound he didn't know he'd already heard. In the morning, I pulled the refi package and verified what I knew. The deed there said what I signed. I emailed the recorder's office to ask about procedures for fraudulent recordings. Their auto-reply linked to a one-page form titled Affidavit of Forgery. I printed it and put it in the fire safe and went to work like my life hadn't leaned a degree. That week, the third odd thing arrived as a credit pull on our bank alerts, a HELOC inquiry from a lender. I recognized because we use them at work. I hadn't applied for a line of credit. I called the bank. The nice woman read from her screen, joint applicant LQ Studio LLC, authorized signer Layla Quinn, collateral 1318 Magnolia Ave. "We always cross-reference the recorder," she said. "We see an updated deed." I hung up and put my head on my desk and pressed my eyes like a man trying to squeeze a bad idea back out through his skull. Then I started doing what I was born to do. I made a list. Verify the notary. Pull LQ Studio. LLC registration. Check our mail for anything with county stamps. Freeze our credit. Call a real estate attorney. Do not accuse before you can win. Buy donuts because the paralegal will work harder if there are donuts. At lunch, I searched the Secretary of State's site. LQ Studio LLC existed. Registered agent, a co-working space Layla loved because the coffee was better. Data formation, 8 months ago. Manager, Layla. No Marcus anywhere. I clicked history and saw 2 filings. One amended the address 2 weeks before the quitclaim. The other added an authorized signer, B. Kell. The name on the notary stamp. B. Kell. The name on the notary stamp. I called the number on the filing for registered agent services. A painfully cheerful human confirmed that, yes, LQ Studio was an active client. Yes, they accepted mail. Yes, any legal docs would be forwarded. Beth Kell, the notary, had a LinkedIn like a brochure. Notary public, mobile closings, title services. Her profile picture was a woman in her 40s with a neutral lipstick and the kind of smile that says, "I decline your nonsense." Her endorsements included one from Victor. I took a breath and called a real estate attorney my company uses when a subcontractor files a frivolous lien. His name is Sanders. His voice has the weight of bad news delivered cheerfully. I told him I had a deed that didn't look right. "Bring the paper," he said. "Bring donuts." Sanders is the kind of lawyer who decorates with case reporters and baseballs signed by opposing counsel he's buried without making it personal. He looked at the deed, whistled, and said, "Ambitious." Then he asked a series of questions that made me feel both smart and slow. "Did you sign this?" "No." "Did you authorize this?" "No." "Do you share an attorney with your wife?" "God, no." "Good. Do you have separate counsel for estate stuff?" "We used a will template online." He sighed in a way that said, "We will fix that when you're not on fire." He outlined a plan that sounded like music to a nervous system. File an affidavit of forgery with the recorder to cloud the quitclaim. Record a notice of lease pendants to make any sale or additional encumbrance a problem for anyone who touches it. Send a demand to the HELOC lender with the affidavit. Put the notary and the LLC on notice. Ask the court for a temporary restraining order preventing further transfer pending adjudication. Calmly gather every doc so when a judge looks at us, she sees paper and not adjectives. "And Marcus," he said as I nodded and wrote like a good student, "do not confront your wife with words you can't unsay. This is a chessboard. She thinks she's booking a flight. You're about to cancel her gate." I went home and made pasta because boiling water is therapy. Layla came in glowing from a shoot where a yogurt company let her use a drone. She talked. I stirred. The dog watched her like he always does when she smells like stranger touches. After dinner, I said, "I talked to a lawyer today." Layla's fork paused midair. "For what?" she asked, too smooth. "For the fraudulent deed," I said. "We filed an affidavit. The county will flag anything that tries to use that quitclaim. I also recorded a lease pendens. Any sale or HELOC will have to answer our paper." I let the lender know. Her face did a short arithmetic. Her smile appeared a millisecond later. "Babe," she said, "you overreacted. This is going to make me look like a criminal when I was trying to protect us. Beth will be annoyed, but we can unwind it." "Great," I said, forcing the calm. "Loop me with Beth so I can hear the unwind." She stood, brought her dish to the sink, turned the water on too hard, and said, "It's Friday. This can wait. Don't make work out of a misunderstanding." The next morning, I found a letter in the stack of mail shelving by the door that had not yet taken its rightful place on the counter. It was from the recorder, addressed to LQ Studio, notifying of a recorded lease pendens. Someone had opened it and then slid it into the stack backwards so the back page faced up. People do this when they want things to look untouched. I put a trail cam in the office behind the ficus. Not because I'm a weirdo, because I'm a man who doesn't like asking a judge to believe vibes. I positioned it to see the file cabinet where the deed copies live, the printer, and the framed photo of our parents on the bookshelf. Then I went to Home Depot and bought a tamper evidence seal for the cabinet drawer like I buy them for job site lockboxes. Layla laughed and said, "Are we CSI now?" I said, "We're adults." 2 days later, my phone chirped with a motion alert. I opened the camera feed and watched Layla at my file cabinet, hair up, reading the Lee's Pendants copy. She took a photo. She dialed. She used her brand voice that turns depending on audience. "I need to move the timeline," she said. "Yes, I understand, but he's gone litigious. Tell Victor to hold. Tell Beth to call me from her cell, not the office. We're not doing discovery on this." I sent the clip to Sanders. He responded with 2 words and a thumbs up. "Good. Preserve." The next week, Layla announced a girls' trip to Charleston, 2 nights, content and oysters, which is how her friends described the sacred act of ignoring emails near water. I nodded like a man who has learned not to make jokes about travel hashtags in earshot of the people who use them for rent. That same afternoon, an alert pinged my inbox from USPS Informed Delivery, a service I'd signed up for in a burst of suburban joy that this country still lets you spy on your own mail. The grayscale preview showed a thick envelope from Wellbrook Title addressed to LQ Studio LLC. "Attention, Quinn." The postmark was yesterday. The subject line in the email looked edible. "Closing package." I texted Sanders, "Title docs coming to house." He wrote back, "I'll be there with a court runner. Also, do not open. We do not do felonies to prevent felonies." At 10 a.m., a man in a suit who looked like he has knees made of statutes knocked. He served Layla with a TRO signed by a judge 10 blocks away, temporary restraining order enjoining transfer, encumbrance, conveyance, or recording of any instrument affecting 1318 Magnolia without written consent of both parties or further order of court. Layla held the papers like a person holding a bat at a piñata party, realizing the piñata was full of snakes. "What is this?" she asked, and for the first time in this saga, something like panic cracked the lacquer. "It's a pause button," I said. "We'll show the judge your asset protection plan or your sale, and she'll decide which story needs to sit down." She blew out a laugh that didn't have humor in it. "You're making me your enemy," she said quietly. "You're making the house your content," I said. "I'm making sure we still have a front door." She packed for Charleston like she was a professional, which she is. I watched her fold a white dress that Instagram would love and wondered whether I was watching my marriage unpack itself into outfits. That evening, a DM slid into my requests from a handle I didn't know. It was Beth Kell, the notary. Her first line, "I am not going to prison for your wife." I sat up straight on the couch like a student. She went on, "I notarized her signature on a document transferring her interest to her LLC for asset protection post-refi. She later asked me to notarize your signature on a second document. I refused. Someone else didn't. The county recorded it. I am documenting that I refused." Attached was a PDF of an email Beth had sent to Victor 3 weeks earlier declining to notarize my phantom signature and warning, "This is fraud. Do not involve me." The reply from Victor said, "Understood." Another reply from Layla said, "It's fine. We have options." I forwarded the DM to Sanders and tried not to make a sound that would freak the dog out. He called immediately. "We hire Beth," he said, "as a witness, not a friend. We subpoena Victor. We subpoena the HELOC docs and the title packet. We freeze the title company with notice. We keep the TRO in force. You, Marcus, do not throw a single plate." The morning of Layla's trip, I woke before dawn to the sound of the printer. I padded to the office and stopped in the doorway. Layla was printing the closing package settlement statement, seller's affidavit, owner's title policy waiver. The buyer, a shell LLC with a mailing address matching Victor's contracting company. Her signature was already in two places. She was reading the owner's affidavit that says no one else has a claim. She looked at me and kept her face calm in that way that tells you it was ready practice. "I can't believe you try to stop a business decision," she said. "We would have moved. We would have made money. We would have bought in Cabbagetown, and you would have bragged about cap rates. But you love your little deed." "I love not meeting a sheriff over breakfast," I said. She pointed at me with the pen like it was an answer. "We could have done this together," she said. "We could have been smart." "You could have told me," I said. "That's what smart is." She put the pen down. "I'm late for the airport," she said, and the scene ended like she wanted to cut to a new angle. She left. I watched the Uber taillights. I called Sanders, and we set a plan that felt like the grown-up version of a heist. He'd get a judge to extend the TRO into a temporary injunction. He'd send a demand to Wellbrook Title attaching the order and threatening a bar complaint if they close knowingly over contested paper. He'd send notice to the HELOC lender with the forgery affidavit and the TRO. He'd file an emergency motion for custody of any disputed proceeds if a sale had somehow slithered past the blockade. He'd call the recorder's office like a man whose calendar pays for their pens. I cleaned the house. It's what I do when the plot twists. I vacuumed under the couch and found 3 balled-up to-do lists in Layla's handwriting. On one, a line item, Quitclaim 02, find alt notary. On another, HELOC draw use LQ Act, repay post close. On the third, TRO, call B. I sat on the floor with the vacuum still humming and thought about how you can live next to someone and not notice their handwriting is a map. At 2 p.m., Sanders texted, "Heard from title. They were set to close Friday. They're pausing. Also, Victor's office sent a very stupid email." He forwarded it. "Victor, we have an equitable interest in 1318 due to improvements and arrangements. The TRO is an overreach. We intend to proceed or seek damages." Sanders wrote to me. He has said the quiet part out loud. He intends to admit conspiracy. Bless him. Then came the thing that put my stomach on the floor. A notification from the county recorder, deed of trust recorded. Lender, Southeastern Home Equity. Borrower, LQ Studio, LLC. Amount, $120,000. The timestamp was that morning. Somehow, despite the affidavit and the lease pendants, a lender had slithered in with a HELOC against my house using the fake quitclaim and the hot breath of a title company that loves fees. I forwarded it to Sanders with a line I never thought I'd write. "They got the line." He called. "It's okay," he said, voice level like a surgeon. "We'll kill it. The affidavit and the TRO make the deed unmarketable. The lender has to unwind or they eat it. Meanwhile, don't leave town. And if Layla calls, do not negotiate. We're past vibes." I didn't hear from Layla that day. I did receive a message from a number I didn't recognize. Don't do this to her. It was Victor. I blocked the number. Then I unblocked it, took a screenshot because evidence matters, and blocked it again. At sunset, I sat on the front steps with Ludo and watched a kid on a bike teach his smaller brother how to stop without falling. The magnolia was loud in the breeze. A neighbor I only ever small talk with about trash day paused on his run and said, "You good, man?" I said, "We're real." And he nodded because that sometimes is the only liturgy you need. 2 hours later, my phone buzzed with a Charleston area code. Layla. I let it ring twice so my voice wouldn't wobble when I answered. She didn't bother with hello. "You humiliated me," she said. "You served me like I'm a stranger. I'm at dinner with my friends, and you turned me into a court case." "You recorded a deed that erased me," I said. "I think we're strangers." "Jesus, Marcus," she snapped. "Do you hear yourself? This is so punitive. You're punishing me for being better at making life work. I'm protecting the roof, I said. If you want to move, we can sell like adults, not like thieves. There was a quiet where you can hear the shape of another person's choices. Then she said the sentence that took us from plan to war. If you don't drop the injunction, she said, I will file for divorce and tell the court you're controlling and emotionally abusive. You have your little affidavit? I have mine. I will say you threatened me. I will say you threw a chair. Layla, I said softly, because anger would have been easier. You put that in paper and I will bring every clip, every notary's DM, every title email, and the judge will not be distracted by your adjectives. She hung up. The dial tone felt like a door closing in a house you paid for. At 9 a.m. the next morning, Sanders filed our amended motion with the new HELOC recording attached. The judge set a hearing for Monday. He sent a process server to Wellbrook Title and to the lender so no one could pretend they didn't see. He scheduled Beth for a deposition. He put Victor's email in an exhibit list with a tab that said Victor's Muth. I spent Saturday making copies, labeling folders, and kneading dough because bread is one of the only chores that rewards you for punching. Sunday, I dropped a loaf on Sanders's porch like a tithe. On Monday, I walked into a courtroom that smelled like air conditioning and hard decisions. Layla sat on the other side with a lawyer in a blue suit who looked like he specialized in temporary, emergency, and expedited. She wore a dress that makes judges pity you if they have a daughter. She didn't meet my eyes. Victor was not there. He had sent a letter reserving his rights, which is lawyer for I'm scared. The judge, mid-50s, glasses, a face that has practiced not giving you your television moment, looked at our stack, and then at the quitclaim, and then at the HELOC, and then at Layla's counsel. Counsel, she said, explain to me, like I don't know words, why Mr. Adler's signature appears on a deed he did not sign, and what business a line of credit has on this property 2 months after a refinance without his knowledge. Blue Suit started a paragraph that had the word entrepreneurial, the word miscommunication, and the phrase content creator economy. The judge held up a hand like she was directing traffic. Stop, she said. Answer my question. You will have time to sell me an essay later. He floundered. He proposed the plan I had been waiting to hear. Escrow the HELOC funds until title clearance. Remove the lease pendants, allow closing with proceeds held, allow Layla to manage the transaction because she understands the brand partnerships tied to the property narrative. The judge blinked once, slowly, the way a cat does when it's been patient enough. Then she turned to me. Mr. Adler, she said, do you still live in the house? Yes, Your Honor, I said. Do you want to sell the house? Not like this, I said. If we sell as husband and wife on paper that tells the truth. She nodded. Then she looked at Layla. Miss Quinn, she said, and the gentle changed. Did you attempt to obtain a line of credit using a quitclaim deed conveying your spouse's interest to your LLC? Layla did the only smart thing anyone has done in this story besides my lawyer. She said, quietly, yes. The judge sighed. Temporary injunction extended, she said. No transfer, no HELOC draw, no encumbrance, no closed deal. Title company notified. If title closes, I will enjoy sanctioning them. Miss Quinn, you will produce all communications with your notary and contractor. Mr. Adler, your counsel will draft a protective order for the house. The court will not be used as a content strategy. She banged a gavel not because she needed to, but because every room deserves its own sound of the end of one thing and the beginning of another. That was the moment the second half of this story began. Because what came next wasn't just legal. It was the part where I learned my wife had not only tried to move a house without me, she had also been moving me, piece by paperwork piece, toward a version of myself that looked like a villain on paper, so she could walk away with the magnolia and the mortgage and a TED Talk. And I wasn't going to let her. Tell me what you think. Would you have confronted her the second the county email came, or done what I did, file, freeze, and set the table for a judge? Would you have trusted that asset protection speech, or followed the paper trail to the P.O. box? Would you have kept your voice low in the hearing, or given the speech you've been writing in your head since Tuesday? Drop your take in the comments, hit like if this pulled you in, and subscribe if you want the second half where the closing gets blocked, the HELOC gets clawed back, and I learn what else my name got attached to while I was pricing concrete. The order felt like a seatbelt finally clicking. It didn't stop the car, but it kept me from going through the windshield while everything else tried to throw me. Sanders didn't let the tempo drop. He sent the injunction to Wellbrook, the lender, the registered agent for LQ Studio, the county recorder, and, by certified mail for dessert, to Victor's office. His paralegal, Monica, is 5 feet of mercy with a stapler. She color-coded the exhibits so cleanly that even my nervous system relaxed. 2 hours after the hearing, a compliance officer from Wellbrook called Sanders and then me. Corporate voice, over-enunciated vowels. "We've placed a freeze on the file," she said. "No closing will occur." Translation: we smelled handcuffs. She followed it with an email written by a person who has learned to live inside a risk matrix, attaching their pause memo and promising internal review. Southeastern Home Equity sent a shorter email with fewer verbs. Leanne recorded an error due to borrower misrepresentation. "We are initiating release." It looked like a surrender flag typed by a lawyer. I breathed for the first time in a week without tasting copper. Beth. Our sudden patron saint of notaries who refuse to be accessories, met us in Sanders's conference room with a folder that read like the moral version of a room mic. She had her logbook. She had a letter she'd sent to the Georgia Notary Division a month earlier documenting that her stamp had been copied and used without her consent, attaching side-by-side screenshots of her real signature and the scrawl on my forged quitclaim. She had text threads with Victor where he tried the soft corruption. "Do me a favor, no one will check." Then, "Come on, this is how deals get done." Then, "Beth, don't be dramatic." Her final text, "Do not text this number again," made me want to frame it. Monica slid Beth a witness fee check like a good fairy godmother and then handed me a stack of subpoenas waiting for my signature insurer, lender, Wellbrook, the co-working space, the USPS P.O. box. Sanders kept saying, "Preserve," like it was a prayer. Discovery turned up rot like pulling up carpet. In the title package was a seller's affidavit, already signed with Layla's flowing L and my butchered name. A form stating no one else had claims, no disputes, no restraining orders. There was an email chain where a junior closer at Wellbrook had asked whether husband will be there to sign, and a senior had replied, "Quitclaim and file, not needed." There was also a file note from a week back, penned by some nervous employee with an instinct for survival flagging the Lee's pendants, then crossed out with "Resolved seller says misunderstanding." We put that note in bold in our motion for sanctions. Meanwhile, Victor fired off one more bravado email about equitable interest and value-add improvements, attaching photos from our kitchen remodel he'd shot like a before and after ad. It read like a man who thought he could invoice marriage. Sanders smiled without mirth. "He doesn't realize," he said, "that I plan to profit from your property with your wife while excluding you is not a strong sentence to bring into court." Watch him keep talking. 3 nights after the hearing, the doorbell rang. A man in a polo with a laminated badge that said SKY Line Home Buyers smiled like a realtor, and an ambulance chaser had a baby. "We're here for the walkthrough," he said. I laughed, which was mean and involuntary. "Walkthrough of what?" 1318 Magnolia, he said. "We got an assignment agreement. Contract says vacant at close of escrow." Behind him, A second guy stood with a measuring wheel, already glancing past me at the baseboards like he was imagining where to drop an offer on Craigslist. I stepped onto the porch and shut the door behind me because nothing in my hallway needed to hear this. "Who assigned you?" I asked. He read from his phone. "LQ Studio, LLC, represented by Victor." "Cool," I said. "Here's a temporary injunction. Here's a lee pendens. Here's my face. The house is not vacant. The contract is void. Your assignment is a framed photo of a scam." He went pale and then blotchy, two emotions that fight in real time. "Can I get copies?" he asked, voice smaller now. I handed him two redacted sets because Sanders makes extras for moments exactly like this. The second guy with the wheel lowered it like a flag. They left in a hurry. I felt a flash of pity for men who buy paper from people who talk fast. Then I felt grateful for my own boringness. That weekend, Layla violated the mutual no contact by posting a story with a screenshot of a sealed court caption, and the caption "Sometimes people weaponize paperwork to control women." Monica sent it to Sanders. Sanders sent it to the judge. The judge issued a short order that read like, "Delete it now," and then, honor student that she is, she attached an explainer about indirect contact and subtweet contempt. The story disappeared. She put up a photo of oysters. Her followers wrote hearts. The comments smelled like smoke. The next hearing was about canceling clouds and who gets to live where, while the divorce papers worked their slow way across desks. Sanders filed a quiet title action to void and cancel the forged quitclaim and the HELOC in the chain of title. He tied it to the injunction and attached Beth's logbook and DM and the stupidest parts of Victor's emails. In the courtroom, Blue Suit tried a new song. Layla had meant to include me. She was advised it was normal by a trusted advisor. She was protecting us from creator liability. The HELOC was just a bridge. The judge listened and then turned to Beth. "Ms. Kell," she said, "did you notarize Mr. Adler's signature?" "No," Beth said, clear as a bell. I refused. "Did you tell anyone that refusal?" "Yes," she said, and recited her emails and the date she filed a notice about a copied stamp. The judge's pen stopped. You can feel when the room decides which nouns it believes. By the end of the hour, the court had issued a preliminary order canceling the fake deed and ordering the lender to file a release of the HELOC. It also granted me exclusive possession of the house pending final settlement and ordered the locksmith receipt into the record. "We do not reward audacity," the judge said. Blue Suit asked for a carve-out so Layla could come retrieve equipment. "Under supervision," the judge said, with a list made in advance and every item photographed in and out. "No documents leave that house unless both parties initial the thumb tab." It wasn't fun. It was anatomy. And it worked. I changed the locks again because that's how I exhale. Layla came with 2 officers and a friend whose job appeared to be to coo, "You're doing amazing," every 3 minutes. We put her ring lights and softboxes and brittle tripods into labeled bins. She asked for the framed deed copy from my office wall, the one we hung when we closed. I shook my head, no. She stared at it like a fortune cookie that had betrayed her. On the way out, she paused in front of the magnolia and made herself cry in that way people can when they've practiced. "I built this," she said, "not to me, not to the officers, not to the tree, to whatever audience she believes follows her even out of frames." "You almost sold it," I said, "to yourself." The DA's office called a week later. A woman with a voice that made me think of teachers who don't accept late work said they'd opened an investigation into recording a false document and first-degree forgery. She asked for my statement and Beth's DM. She asked if I knew who physically typed and filed the quitclaim. I didn't. Our recorder portal had the upload IP masked by a VPN. She said they'd subpoena the notary's stamp order history. the UPS store where stamps get shipped, Victor's email metadata, and the title company's internal chat. "We like metadata," she said like a person who enjoys vegetables. Then came the part I didn't want and was glad for anyway, the marital side. I filed for divorce because there's only so much paper you can hold and still call it a marriage. Georgia is equitable distribution, not equal. And marital waste is a phrase that suddenly mattered to me the way cure time matters to a concrete pour. Sanders made me a pie chart that illustrated how trying to steal equity counts as waste. "We go for the house," he said, "a bigger share of cash and attorney's fees. We also go for a restraining order on credit because we're not doing this again with furniture or a car." It wasn't about punishment. It was about math. I made a schedule of assets and values and a timeline so painfully precise that I almost apologized to Monica for my font choices. We went to mediation with a woman who had the energy of a kindergarten teacher and a chainsaw. Layla arrived with a different lawyer. Blue Suit had been replaced by a woman who looked like she braided hair well and took no one's nonsense. It was almost worse because she was competent. We hammered for hours. The mediator walked between rooms delivering offers, counteroffers, and the occasional eye roll disguised as neutrality. In the end, we landed on a deal that looked like sanity from a distance. I kept the house. She waived any claim to its appreciation. She got the small balance of a joint savings account. I paid the mortgage solo. She took her business debt personally. She agreed to stay off my credit. We each kept our retirements. She did not get attorney's fees. I didn't ask for them because sometimes the dignity is in not picking every scab. The judge blessed it. The clerk stamped it like a blessing. The recorder filed the order quieting title and canceling forged instruments. And for the first time since my name had been kidnapped from my own deed, I saw a document do what papers should. Tell the truth out loud so a stranger can understand it later. The DA charged Victor and an unnamed associate notary with forgery and filing false documents in a short, unadorned indictment. The associate turned out to be a girlfriend of one of Victor's subs who'd ordered a counterfeit stamp off the internet. I learned her name because charges teach you spelling. She pled to a misdemeanor and did community service at the clerk's window, where people record real deeds. If there's a god of irony, she got a bonus point that day. Victor did a perp walk in a blue Oxford, and the kind of smile that says, "I cannot believe consequences still exist." His contracting license became a hearing topic. He voluntarily surrendered. He pled out. First offender probation, fines, a note that will forever follow him in any title company's compliance software. Layla took a pretrial diversion. Theft, fraud, forgery were reduced to a single count of attempted filing of a false instrument with 12 months of probation, a ban on recording anything at the county without an attorney's signature, 150 hours of community service with a housing nonprofit, and a requirement to complete a course called Financial Boundaries and Ethics. She complained privately to mutuals. She did not do it on the internet because the judge had been very clear about the price of contempt. Her brand bled. A few sponsors posted, "We don't condone fraud." A few stuck with her because algorithms forgive pretty. She pivoted to lessons learned, content, and then to book reviews, and then, eventually, to walking my dog, because the internet has the attention span of a toddler in a toy aisle. I muted her, not as punishment, as rehab. The HELOC recorded its release. The title company wrote a letter that should be taught in continuing education. We failed to detect a forged deed despite multiple red flags. We have taken corrective measures, and we will be reporting this incident to the Georgia Insurance Commissioner and the State Bar for review. They cut a check to cover my legal costs on the title side. I didn't cash it until Sanders confirmed there were no hooks. Then I bought Monica a ridiculous edible arrangement and Sanders a Braves ticket because gifts are how Southerners say what we're not good at saying. Neighbors started doing that thing where they slow down at the curb and then pretend they were walking anyway. 1. A man I've spoken to maybe twice about lawn seed brought me his own property fraud alert email sign-up link with a sticky note. This saved us when my cousin's rental got quitclaimed by a crackhead. He might run a bank. He might run a brake shop. He's now in my phone as Fraud Angel. My mother came over with okra and cornbread and a question that made me sit in my own kitchen like a jury. If she'd told you the plan at the start, Mom asked, with all the nouns and none of the nonsense, could you have said yes? I thought about it long enough to be proud of myself. No, I said, not the way she did it. Not without me, not with lies. Maybe there's a world where an LLC makes sense, but not one where my signature blinks into existence because somebody needed an ending for a reel. On a Sunday, the magnolia dropped 1,000 petals, and I raked them because there is something holy about doing small chores in a house you still own. Ludo watched a hawk pretend it wasn't waiting for squirrels. The HVAC hummed with middle-aged contentment. I labeled a new folder for the fire safe. Title: Final. The word final felt like a dare. It also felt like a meal. I met with a financial planner who looks like he flosses because he enjoys it, and we did the boring work, froze credit, set alerts, removed Layla from anything that billed, filed new beneficiary forms, got the house insured under my name with a flag on the account to require in-person notarized consent for any change. He asked me if I had a new will. I said I had an old template. He made a face like a cat smelling citrus. "We'll do a real one," he said. "Do not let the state write your love letter." There were aftershocks. A mutual friend texted, "She says you stole the house." I replied with a screenshot of the order canceling the forged deed and then put my phone on Do Not Disturb and went outside to recock the hose bib because water finds cracks, and I have learned to find them first. The last time I saw Layla in person was in a parking garage under a building where people teach yoga and sell $9 coffee. We were both there in leotards of our new lives. She looked good in that way that hurts because the body can hold both grief and attraction without checking in with your ethics. She said, "You made me into a cautionary tale." I said, "You did that." She said, "I thought you were boring." I said, "Thank God." Then we both laughed because somewhere under the debris we still had the joke about rulers at public hearings. What did I learn? That paper can be a weapon or a seatbelt. That asset protection becomes asset theft when you take the other person out of the sentence. That calm beats clever in rooms with a judge and a mic. That some people hear the word partnership and think it means permission to proceed without you. That my love language is documented consent. That it's not petty to keep copies. It's kindness to your future self. And that the most radical thing I did in this story was not yell. It was file. Would you have gone nuclear online, naming names and posting PDFs? Or done what I did and let the room with the seal decide? Would you have tried to salvage the marriage or drawn the boundary at the county line? Would you have forgiven if she'd come clean before the hearing, or does forgiveness for you require the absence of a counterfeit stamp? I want to hear your take. Drop it in the comments. If this kept you listening, hit like so. It finds the next person whose phone pings with a recorder email and thinks it's spam. And subscribe for more long, messy, true-feeling stories where the twist isn't a screaming fight. It's a quitclaim you didn't sign, a notary who refused to be a prop, and a judge who said 5 words I'll never forget: "We do not reward audacity."